Good morning, everyone. Just before I start, I've been asked just to give you the Twitter information for those of you who would like to be tweeting during the course of the day. The handle is at JSE_group, and the hashtag is ESG Investor Conference. So please feel free to tweet away and to also follow the JSE to see what else is being tweeted about this event. From my side as well, a hearty welcome. This event is always a highlight on our calendar of events around sustainability and ESG issues throughout the course of the year. It's an event that we're very proud of in terms of how it's been growing and how we have seen not only the investors start engaging more and more with our companies in follow-up to these events, but also for the companies who start approaching us very early on in the year to say, look, when is this event happening? Please make sure I'm on your calendar. Unfortunately, this time of the year is also a time of results for a lot of companies. So we are relooking the timeline for next year to attract some of the other companies. GrowthPoint are here. They just released their results yesterday, so thank you to them for fitting that in, and the others within a very difficult and busy time of the year. Just for me to set the context of the day, for those of you who are with us for the first time, just to give you a brief rundown of what the SRI index does, what the JSE does in the sustainability space, to give you a sense of why it is that we're involved in this space and how it comes to be that we invite companies to come and present. So to start off with the JSE, for us, sustainability is multifaceted. We are a listed company ourselves, so we need to make sure that we run a sustainable business so that we can deliver a long-term return for our own stakeholders and shareholders. But also, we have a huge external sphere of control and influence with our listed companies and the investors and the broader participants in capital markets generally. So we constantly need to try and balance those pressures, but also trying to make sure that we continue to exert positive influence wherever we touch people and those that operate within our market. So the approach that we've chosen to take, which has been in place for over a decade now, is a hybrid. And the idea really is that we're trying to create an enabling environment for conversations to happen and for sustainability action to take place. On the top left-hand side of that matrix, you will see the framework of regulation that is in place. This is our listings requirements that have mandatory governance requirements on the listed companies, as well as the King 3 apply or explain requirement for listed companies, which has been in place since King 1, actually. And as many of you now know, King 3 has the recommendation that companies pursue to integrated reporting, and that certainly has put South Africa on the map in terms of leading the way in how companies evolve their sustainability and financial reporting in an integrated fashion. Then on investment tools, the SRI index has been our flagship since 2004. It was running for 10 years. And this year in June, we announced that we are now evolving to a collaboration with FTSE Russell in relation to their new ESG approach. I'll touch on that a little bit, but certainly some exciting announcements about that coming up very soon. That really is aimed at getting the investors more involved and offering tools for you not only to engage with companies, but also to actually make investments based on ESG considerations and bearing those in mind. At the bottom, our activities in the engagement sphere include events like this, the investor briefing. We also run a series of topical seminars every year around specific ESG topics. And then we do briefing sessions for the companies, individual meetings and the like, to make sure that we can help where we can and put them in touch with where they need to be assisted. And on advocacy, we serve on a number of panels and committees, globally as well as locally. Internationally, we're very active as a member of the World Federation of Exchanges Sustainability Working Group. We currently have the vice chair position on that committee. We're also very active in the Sustainable Stock Exchanges Initiative and a signatory to the UN Principles for Responsible Investment. Locally, as part of the standing committees for the King Code, as well as the CRISA committee, and we're also involved in the Integrated Reporting Committee and its working group. So it's very important for us to make sure that we remain a part of these conversations so that we can ensure that we position the JSE to help our companies to influence where we can, but that we also keep learning about how things are evolving in this very, very dynamic and exciting space. The index itself is nearing when it was launched in 2004 as the first of its kind to be created by an emerging market, as well as the first to be created by a stock exchange. So many stock exchanges have followed suit since, and this is a very active space now. But a lot of them come to us to learn from experience and what we have had to deal with in terms of trial and error and the successes that we've had. The aim of the index is really threefold, and our evolutionary approach to work with FTSE Russell will still be aimed at these three things. So firstly, it's wanting to encourage companies to integrate their risk management, understanding their ESG impacts, and making sure that they act on that and are transparent about how they're doing it. Then to create tools for the investors to have access to what companies are doing and to act on that. And then thirdly, to create conversation between investors and issuers around these issues. So our approach has always been positive and aspirational. We don't exclude companies by industry. We look at everyone, so those investors that are interested in an ethical approach can use our approach as a basis to then apply further negative screening. The criteria that the SRI index follows is aligned to global standards, so we use a combination of all of the various frameworks that are around, but we've pulled in customized elements for local relevance. So excuse me, issues like HIV and AIDS, skills development, labor relations and so on are customized to the local environment. As I mentioned, it's developmental and incremental, so if you looked at the criteria as they were in 2004, it's vastly different to what it looks like at the moment. The focus has also evolved from helping companies understand their impacts and looking at implementing policies and systems to where we are today, only looking at publicly available information and therefore encouraging proper transparency and reporting for investors to use. We have the environmental, social, and governance criteria, and then some focus criteria for climate change. The technical construction of the index, so the base universe has been the FTSE JSE All Share Index. We conduct an automatic assessment of the entire All Share Index since 2013, and as I mentioned, only publicly available information. The process has been twofold, as is the process moving forward as well. There is a desktop assessment by a data collector or an expert analyst, and that then is provided to the company to provide further input and highlight any information that has been missed in the public domain or to highlight any new information that may be coming out imminently. The current SRI index is constructed by market cap weighting. So therefore, you would see that if you were to track the performance against the All Share or the top 40, that it tracks very closely given the concentration of large caps in there. Just a very brief overview of the areas that we look at. So when you listen to the companies today, you will know that these are the issues that they needed to address in order to qualify for the SRI index. The environmental criteria are very broad. We often find companies struggling with this area because it's so broad, so a lot of companies focus on particular issues and not all of the environmental issues. Obviously, all of the companies here today are focusing on most of the issues, hence they qualify for inclusion into the index. We also classify them by impact in terms of high, medium, or low, depending on the industry that they're in and the kind of typical impacts that one would see in that industry. The indicators, as I mentioned, are split across policy and then management and reporting. Then society and governance follows a thematic approach, so there are indicators by theme. The social areas include the customized areas that I mentioned, and then also things like training and development, community relations, equal opportunities, and the like. Board practice, ethics, business valuation, risk management, those are the issues that you will find in the governance area, which also includes some economic considerations and indirect impacts. And then the focus area for climate change is principles-based, so this looks at, do companies understand what their impact is on the climate, have they conducted risk assessments, and have the necessary management processes in place for that. So we have around 8 indicators there that companies are required to meet. It's interesting in this area that often companies fail to meet the governance area of climate change, not having senior responsibility for it, because carbon footprints are traditionally done. However, we've had very constructive engagements with companies to make sure that they understand what they need to do in this area. So the current statistics, over the life of the index, you will see that the companies that have been assessed has grown, and this is also because we grew the automatic assessment from a completely voluntary approach in 2004 to 2013, where we looked at the entire all-share index, which is always just under or over the 160 company mark. The number of constituents has grown consistently as well, with 2014 seeing the highest number of constituents with 82. And the best performers have varied up and down. We saw quite a big drop between over 2011 to 2013. That was mainly due to our requirement around moving towards publicly available information, that companies have all the information in place to make it into the index, but it's not all necessarily available in the public domain, so that precluded them from best performer status. And as the day progresses, Carla will highlight for the companies that are presenting since when they have been in the index and which of them have been best performers over the years. By size, very quickly, the top 40s have always done really well, consistently maintaining around between 30 and 35. Note that this is not the same companies every year. The top 40 has moved around quite a lot. For those of you who follows it, you would know that there have been significant changes in the top 40 over the last couple of years. The mid-caps is really a big success story for us, because in 2008, when we started looking at them automatically, they really showed significant growth in terms of acting on the criteria, and have consistently maintained around half of the mid-caps qualifying for the index. The small caps also have been really starting to engage with us in the last couple of years since we started looking at them automatically as well. And we now have 11 small caps in the index, which is really something to be proud of, considering that a lot of them don't have the resources to implement significant sustainability programs. What is the value proposition of the index is something that we often get asked. So if you're a company, it's an aspirational benchmark for a lot of companies. It has huge reputational value for them to be in the index. The fact that it streamlines indicators across the globe that the multinationals often have to look at with local significance is something that a lot of them find extremely useful, and they use our index to close the loop on the issues that they need to look at both in a global and a local context. Obviously, the matter of increased accountability is there because we're looking at publicly available information and the focus on transparency. It also creates the potential for increased engagement and investment, which is why events like today is so important and why the companies find it so useful to present here. Because it's not often that they have the opportunity to engage a room full of investors that are interested in what they are doing on ESG issues. And especially since the UNPRI came about in the mid-2000s, we've really seen accelerated interest from our investor community. For you as the investor, the value proposition is we offer a pool of companies that's screened against global best practices as well as local imperatives. It's a known universe of candidates, so there's an eligible global universe and you know what's being looked at. And it offers a menu of diverse constituents across various sectors, across environmental impacts and industries, as well as with varying market caps. So that offers a lot for investors to play around with in terms of implementing your own responsible investment practices. And as we're moving forward, there will be a lot of focus on increasing the data availability and creating more opportunities for engagement similar to today. And I would also encourage you to use the evaluation form. I think it will be distributed electronically at the end of the day or early tomorrow. Please use that opportunity to give us feedback around how we can create more opportunities for you to engage. We're very open to different methods, full room, one-on-one, whatever you are looking for, please just do let us know. The sectors that have consistently done well in the SRI index are the mining sector and the banks. It's interesting because the banks started off a little bit slow but then picked up really quickly, and in the last years they have been really strong. The mining sector, as one can expect, are very exposed to sustainability issues, so they have been consistently strong in the index despite the many, many challenges that they face and the many interesting conversations that we have had over the years with a lot of them. Other strong sectors, so general financial has been doing good, and coupled with life insurance, who's always strong. General industrials, construction and materials have also been sectors that have been strong. The growth sectors, and we call them growth sectors because they are not consistent in their performance. Some of them do really well. Other companies are still lagging a little bit behind. This includes the retail sector. So we have a couple of very strong retail companies and others that do not yet feature in this space. The food producers, similarly, and then the health companies, of which we have Netcare here today, also starting to do really well there. So moving then to today, and where we are, well, first, where we're going after today. So in 2012, we conducted a significant stakeholder consultation to understand what is the value proposition for the index and where do we need to move it going forward. And it was clear to us that the JSE is seen as a leader and a key player in the sustainability debate locally and globally. We need to leverage and continue leveraging our reputation in this space. And while the SRI index has been significantly influential, it is time for us to start upping the game again. The issuers take it very seriously. We've come a long way in working with a lot of them to really establish this as part of what they do on a regular basis. And the investors increasingly see it as a benchmark for good ESG performance. So our intention moving forward is not only to retain our impact in this space, but to grow it. And the promotion of transparency is a big focus in this area, as well as our interaction with companies and investors. So as I mentioned, we will do this through expanded data collection to promote the transparency and expanded access for our investors, and enhancing that interface for the companies and the investors. So our collaboration with FTSE Russell means that we have now aligned the indicators and the data collection processes with the FTSE Russell ESG process. And we are currently developing a product that will follow on the SRI index from probably later this year, early next year. We expect to be able to make an announcement within the next couple of weeks. We're just waiting for the technical guys to cross all the T's and dot all the I's. And then we will start having real and serious conversations with the companies around what they need to do to meet the new methodology and the new indicators, and also with you as investors to understand what your needs are and how we can work with you to make sure that we can give you what you need. So the intention is that the calculation of the SRI index will terminate by the end of this year. By that time, we will have the new index up and running so that we don't create too much disruption for people that have been tracking the index. And the product that we will start with will look initially at 85 companies that form part of the FTSE Russell All-World Indices. They span across the top 40 mid-cap as well as the small caps. And then from next year, we will start expanding that universe again until we have covered the entire all-share. If you have any product queries, there's a quick email address, marketdata@jse.co.za, and you can contact Nathan Jardine. He's the man to talk to with regards to the products and so on. We will be going to Cape Town as well and having some meetings here. So if you would like to set up a meeting, please just drop him or myself an email, and we'd love to come and meet with you. About today then, so Carla's given you a little bit of an overview of how today came about. It's been run successfully for 4 years. This is the 5th year that we're doing this, and we will continue to grow and expand it. We don't use a specific structure, but we do encourage companies to use the value driver framework that was developed by the United Nations Global Compact and the PRI. The aim is to allow companies to bring unique content to you, so they must tell you their sustainability journey and their story, but to try and meet investor needs for relevance, comparability, and integration into your financial analysis. So not all of them will necessarily make reference to all of the elements. However, we've encouraged them to do that while still retaining their unique story. The content elements that we've asked them to look at then is to focus on why is it attractive for you to invest in them because of what they're doing in sustainability, and to focus on the value drivers that are material to them, and if they use any metrics, what those are and how they are tracking those. The value driver framework, I'm not going to go through that in a lot of detail, so companies may touch on things like growth, return on capital, and risk management. Most of them will focus on their ESG elements and the material issues and how they have dealt with that. But if you have any questions, please feel free to also touch on how they've seen any impacts in relation to their financial performance. So that's an overview for me. Carla, I don't know if we have 3 minutes for questions, if there are any questions to me. But otherwise, I am available throughout the course of the day. My colleague Mahiba Mola with the dark glass is also sitting here. So if you would like to ask any questions around the index, please feel free to approach us at any time during the breaks. Thank you.